The morning casts long shadows over the ancient ruins, where whispers of forgotten lore mingle with the rustling leaves. The air is thick with anticipation as a group of adventurers gather at the edge of the forest as the skies darken with black wings. This is where legends are born and destinies are forged. Welcome, world builders, to the final chapter of the Red Quill's Guide to World Design. I'm Ryan of the Red Quill, and today we will weave together the threads of our previous episodes to create a compelling D&D campaign. We've explored map making, world building, crafting, lore, designing enemies and mythologies. Now it's time to unite these elements into a grand narrative that will capture your players and bring your worlds to life. In this episode, we will delve into the process of conceptualizing your campaign, setting the stage for your adventure, building your world, planning, engaging encounters, and managing your campaign to ensure that it remains dynamic and engaging. By the end, you should have the tools and inspiration needed to guide your players through an unforgettable journey in the world that you've crafted. This episode is all about creating a full-on campaign and using these tools and insights to not only construct a main campaign, but also the ongoing side quests and the handouts necessary to involve and entertain your players. To illustrate this, I won't be creating a map today. I'll be creating the handouts, notices, battle maps, and texts for the quests of the latest Lore Archive series, including discussing the writings of a prophecy for your players. So let's start with the notices and open up to the world. Today's creativity is going to be a little different from our usual episodes. Normally I create one large map, and that suits me pretty well in making these videos. It means that my attention isn't divided and I can focus on weaving in all of the relevant information to the video in one document. But today, instead of just creating one map, I'll be creating a variety of handouts. I'll be working on the prophecy for the main quest, and I'll even create some parts of some 3D D&D terrain to show that you can engage these things in the maps that you've created and how they themselves are maps of a kind. Quests are the building blocks of your campaign, each one offering a unique challenge and advancing the overall plot. Let's dive into some common types of quests and how to make them engaging for your players. Fetch quests involve sending your players to retrieve a specific item or complete a task. While they can sometimes feel mundane, they can be made exciting with interesting locations and challenges and obstacles and meaningful rewards. For example, instead of a simple go fetch this item quest, consider adding layers of complexity, such as rival factions. The item that your players are seeking is also desired by a powerful rival faction. It can lead to tense encounters, negotiations, or even, most excitingly, a race to the finish. Retrieving an item might have unforeseen repercussions, such as awakening a dormant curse or triggering a political upheaval. Or you could place the item in a memorable location, like the heart of a haunted forest or the bottom of a crumbling ancient city. One example could be sending the players to retrieve an artifact for the king, an anti-music box. On the way, they can encounter people who try to stop them and waylay them. After a few encounters, they find that they are working for a tyrant with the power to control people with his voice. The only weakness his power has is music, which the artifact will negate. Diplomacy and negotiation quests focus on social interactions and political intrigue. These quests can involve forging alliances, brokering peace, or navigating complex social dynamics. They offer a great opportunity for role-playing and character development, as well as introducing moral dilemma and difficult choices. For instance, your players might be tasked with mediating a peace treaty between two warring factions. The quest could involve learning about the history and motivations of both sides, uncovering agendas and identifying the key players, or persuading, intimidating, or deceiving influential figures to gain their support, or making tough decisions that could favor one faction over the other with potential long-term consequences for the campaign. Imagine your players must call together the Ordning of the Giants, a gathering of the ancient site of Agdu's sky. Once there, they must convince the giants to help the little folk to defend the kingdom against an invasion of draconic forces. But the giants are unwilling to help them, and the presiding giant, a storm giant named Ul, has been bribed and manipulated by the enemy. Infiltration and tactics quests require stealth, strategy, and careful planning. Whether your players are sneaking into an enemy stronghold or orchestrating a heist, these quests emphasize cunning and resourcefulness. To make them engaging, you can encourage your players to come up with a detailed plan, considering potential obstacles and contingencies. They can provide opportunities for players to use their skills and ingenuity to overcome challenges. They can design locations with multiple entry points, hidden passageways, and interactive elements. An example could be a mission to infiltrate the fortress of the Baron Stacht, who is orchestrating one side of the civil war, to find out how he managed to bring the dead tyrant back to life. The final battle is the climactic showdown that brings the campaign to its thrilling conclusion. This should be a challenge and an epic encounter that tests your players' skills and resolve. Make sure that it ties together the various plot threads and provides a satisfying story. To make the final battle memorable, ensure that the players understand the significance of the battle and what's at risk. Include a variety of enemies, environmental hazards, and tactical choices to keep the encounter dynamic, and incorporate elements from the players' backstories and previous quests to heighten the emotional stakes. For instance, the players face the ancient dragon and Callaghan in a battle that will determine the fate of the realm. The dragon is not only a formidable foe, but also commands a legion of minions and has rigged the battlefield with deadly traps. The players must use all their skills and their knowledge to defeat Callaghan and fulfill the prophecy that they have been uncovering throughout the campaign. By incorporating these elements, you can create quests that are engaging, varied, and integral to your campaign's narrative. By the way, if you think that this resource is coming in useful to you, check out our page, in which we have dozens of other videos and more specific maps and charts. Additionally, you can become a member of the Red Quills on YouTube or Patreon for access to our Mapmaking Discord, exclusive Q&A sessions, topic boards, and high-quality copies of the maps that I make for these videos, as well as early access and behind-the-scenes shoots of our upcoming topics. This video is part of a 6-part series in which we'll be exploring the basics that you'll need in order to create maps that you'll be proud of and that you can use to best effect in your own fantasy world, whether they're written or played or told. Additionally, we have followed along with the Lore Archive series in which we have explored some lore made specifically about this setting. And we have discussed the lore building in a previous video, so hit that subscribe and take a look. But today, we're just going to take it point by point and start, as I'm making these notices, with the beginning of any quest, the plot hooks. Every great campaign begins with compelling reasons for your players to care about the story. Plot hooks are those tantalizing morsels of intrigue that draw your players into the world and make them want to explore further. But what makes a good plot hook? Let's take a look at some of the notices that I'm creating here. The first step in creating a plot hook is understanding your players' motivations. What drives their characters? What are their goals and fears? By tailoring your plot hooks to resonate with these motivations, you can ensure that your players are personally invested in the adventure. For instance, if one of your players' characters is a ranger who cherishes their homeland, a plot hook could involve a dark force threatening to corrupt the forest they protect. Or if another player's character is a noble driven by family honor, they could receive a letter revealing that a loved one has gone missing under mysterious circumstances. But whatever the hook, it should feel personal and urgent. And remember that it doesn't have to be personal to their backstory specifically. It only needs to be personal to their values as a character. If your players long for power, they can be offered it. Gold is always an easy motive, but the best motivators are for concepts or communities, saving people or protecting them. I've created a notice here for the quest The Child and the Snake. A child has been taken by unknown forces during the festival at the ruins of Tol Fount. There's a hefty gold reward which can motivate evil-oriented players, or the promise of rescuing a child, which should motivate good-oriented players. Once you have your plot hook, it's time to build the tension. This is where you plant the seeds of curiosity and danger. Imagine a peaceful, quiet village where rumors of an ancient curse begin to spread after a series of unexplained events. Once clear waters of the village well have turned murky overnight. Livestock are found lifeless with no apparent cause. Or alternatively, in a bustling city, whispers circulate about strange disappearances in the nearby forest, sightings of ghostly apparitions at twilight. The goal is to create a sense of unease and anticipation that will compel your players to take action. For instance, the notice for the quest The Voice in the Dark is an official note banning the playing of music in public spaces. This is sufficiently strange that it should attract the player's attention, and the fact that it is signed by the King's Mage is definitely cause for alarm. The inciting incident is the event that propels your players into the adventure. It should be dramatic and impactful, and provide a clear call to action. Perhaps during a festival, a dragon suddenly descends upon the village, wreaking havoc and leaving cryptic warnings of worse things to come unless a specific relic is found and returned. Or in a more urban setting, a mysterious cloaked figure in shadow approaches the party with a quest they can't refuse, a chance to uncover the truth behind a series of high-profile kidnappings that have left the city in fear. This incident sets the stage for the rest of the campaign and gives your players a clear goal to strive for. Notices aren't in and themselves an exciting incident, but a note clutched desperately in the hands of a dying villager is. In this case, for the quest The Civil War, I'm writing a letter from one of the dukes to another saying that they found the villain from the previous campaign is actually still alive. So, we've brought the players to the quest, now we need to give them some context. A rich and detailed backstory adds depth to your campaign. It provides context for the events that unfold and adds layers of complexity to your world. There's a lot of different ways to do that, from text that they can find and read to specific places that reveal the answers to long-lost questions. NPCs can have hidden knowledge or strong opinions to guide or hinder them on the way. But let's talk about the handouts you can make, particularly one of the longer handouts I've ever made, the full prophecy. Prophecies can be powerful tools in a campaign, hinting at future events and adding an element of mystery. When writing a prophecy, keep it vague enough to allow for interpretation, but specific enough to be meaningful. Use poetic language and symbolism to create a sense of ancient wisdom and foreboding. For instance, I've created the Scale Mount Prophecy. The links to finding the downloadable version are in the description below, but the way that I've written it is a way that you can too. I used the books of Revelation in the New Testament as a basic structure and expanded with my own lore from there. So consider it like this. The opening is the beginning. The prophecy will begin by describing the vision that the prophet has and who is giving it to them. In this case, it is the unnamed Dragonborn speaking to the elder dragon Azuraband. The signs of the beginning are next. All prophecies include details to look for that show that the events of the prophecy are about to begin. In this case, it's the shower of light, which refers to the meteor shower and the death of the weapon of the enemy. Then you move on to the preparations for the events. It's how the people reading the prophecy should get ready for the event that it foretells. In this case, I've described 3 champions of the dragons who each need to be defeated. And then, finally, describe what the prophecy foretells specifically, the event itself. You can do this as vaguely as you like, but you have to make sure that the reader knows what the stakes are. For instance, this prophecy says very clearly, he will bring it all to an end. Finish it up with a few shorter lines that you can have NPCs repeat throughout the quest to remind the players of the stakes. Now, this prophecy uses vivid imagery and symbolic language to create a sense of impending doom and high stakes. It gives the players something to ponder and interpret, adding an intriguing layer to the campaign. At the end of the prophecy, it has the memorable lines, he comes, and Callaghan. And I've had NPCs repeat that over and over and over again in different places, under different contexts, with different interpretations of what that means. And that continues to draw a thread through the campaign and build up their final boss, the dragon. But that's a very big, very complicated example of a handout. Let's talk about something smaller. Lore texts, such as ancient tomes or scrolls or interpretation, are another great way to convey backstory. These texts can provide valuable information about the world's history and cultures and myths. When writing lore texts, think about what details will be most relevant to the current adventure and what secrets you want to reveal gradually. Lore text should only say outright what the players need to know at the end of a quest leg. If you hand them information, then there's no struggle or achievement in that knowledge. For remember, when writing lore, give your players the opportunity to come to conclusions themselves, repeat phrases through different lore texts, and write from the perspective of someone who doesn't know everything. For instance, a player might discover an ancient tome in an old tomb, which contains the account of the long-dead king. It says, "When I drank of the blood of the Sthesic oracle, I knew that knowledge of the future is a burden, not a blessing. When in later days I am lauded or hated, it matters not. I know now what will come to pass, unless I do everything I can to stop it." What did he see? What did he do? Isn't it intriguing? When it comes to backstory, less is often more. You want to provide enough information to create a rich and immersive world, but not so much that it overwhelms your players. Focus on the key elements that are directly relevant to the current campaign and leave some mysteries for your players to uncover on their own. For example, while you might describe the ancient war between the giants and the dragons in broad strokes, you can leave certain details, such as the location of hidden relics or the true cause of the conflict, for the players to discover through their adventures. This approach keeps the story engaging and allows for unexpected twists and revelations. Let's illustrate these concepts with an example. Our players have just completed a quest which brought them to the bottom of the ruins of Tol Fallon to rescue a child. Once they do, they discover that the child was taken by a cult who wants to use the child's blood to force the oracle to have a vision. They have found a copy of the Scoutman prophecy, but want more information on the coming. But the oracle does have a vision when confronted, and dying says, he comes in Callaghan. When the players return to the surface, a meteor shower is streaking across the sky. Our players will want to know more, or if they don't, then you can certainly expose them to more. Over time, they can encounter each of the 3 champions who fit the descriptions given in the prophecy, and they can each die with the same phrase on their lips, he comes in Callaghan. They will come to expect certain things to happen. They will read and reread the prophecy. You may have to remind them of it. The champions can keep portions of it on them, or cults may spring up around the kingdom that study the text. And so you have your quest going. Conflict is the driving force of any campaign. It provides the tension and the stakes that keep your players engaged. I tend to only have the significant NPCs prepared with a great amount of detail in order to save on time, and otherwise use archetypes to help flesh out the NPCs that I create on the fly. But playing characters is its own challenge. I'm a map-making channel, and though I dip into world building as it becomes relevant, characters don't tend to show up on maps. So let's talk about how these characters can influence or be influenced by their environment and world. Here are some rules about the world and the conflicts that I use in my own campaigns, and I'm going to start creating the terrain here. Rule 1 is there are no random encounters. I know what a boon the tables and the books can be. I know that it makes preparation easier, and I know that we can often doubt our ability to world build as DMs. But this is a core rule of mine. Every encounter, every battle, every goblin in the night, all of it has some explanation or bearing to the world as a whole. It doesn't have to be deep, but nothing is unconnected. Go the extra mile. If your players are wandering through the wilderness and you want them to come across something, have a quest idea in your back pocket. If bandits are roaming the countryside, it implies a breakdown of law and order. If monsters are marauding through the lowlands, something has driven them from the mountains, etc. Rule 2 is, anything that can talk can plan. And this one doesn't seem like a map-making rule, but hear me out. It's as relevant in the overworld as it is in a mega dungeon. Anything that is sentient enough to talk is sentient enough to plan. If they can plan, they'll want to keep themselves safe, and they'll probably fortify themselves or find a hidden area to that end. They'll coordinate, they'll think ahead, and if they can't think for themselves, then they'll get something else to do the thinking for them, and that's when the quests get interesting. Rule 3 is lairs and forts are chosen for a reason. Whenever your players follow a creature back to its lair or try to infiltrate a fortress, remember the cardinal rule of making a camp. If it's not a safe place for you, don't stop there. Attacking a creature at its home will always be much more dangerous for the attacker than the defender. Allies, traps, defenses, escape routes, and more will make their house a home. Make your players strategize, bottleneck them, have ambush points, lure them into traps, use their strengths against them, mislead or manipulate them, make them think. Because rule 4 is deter them. This one is an important rule, and I'll stress it if you're a first-time DM. Warn them. You're all there to have fun, and despite the lengths that we go to in order to trick them and attack them, you're on their side too. You can warn them out of game, but there are so many ways in which you can warn them in game too. Moats, walls, and ballistae are a warning to attackers. They can be seen from a distance, and they are a deterrent. Skulls, signs, hanging bodies are another warning. Very few creatures will actively seek combat all the time. Anything that learns from experience will try as much as possible to control the environment in which they fight, which means deterring battle until they choose to battle. Now put these 4 rules into your maps, and armies, squads, clans, or herds will all follow them. A lone animal in the woods is one thing, but over the course of several sessions, you as the world builder have to build the world. Don't be afraid to fill in the cracks and add details as you go. And congratulations, world builders, you've reached the final step of creating a captivating D&D campaign. As you continue to develop your campaign, remember that flexibility is key. Be prepared to adapt to your players' choices and the unexpected directions that they may take. Encourage their creativity and reward their ingenuity. It makes the world feel alive and responsive. To illustrate how these elements can come together, let's revisit the ongoing example, the scale map prophecy. My players, having encountered the prophecy and the dying oracle's vision, are now aware of the impending threat of the dragon. They found themselves embroiled in a race against time, seeking to prevent the prophecy from coming true. And along the way, they'll undertake various quests. They'll have to retrieve ancient relics to gain the power needed to face Enkelligan. They'll have to forge alliances with powerful factions such as the Giants, each with their own interests and secrets. They'll have to sneak into enemy strongholds to gather intelligence or rescue key figures, and they have the climactic showdown against Enkelligan and his champions, drawing on all the knowledge and resources that they've gathered. Throughout the journey, my players encountered well-planned conflicts, each tied to the overarching narrative, and created a cohesive and immersive experience which lasted around 45 sessions. As you embark on the journey of guiding your players through this campaign, remember that your primary goal is to create an enjoyable and memorable experience. Your world is a canvas, and every session is a brushstroke that brings it to life. Encourage collaboration, celebrate creativity, and always be ready to weave new threads into the tapestry of your story. Thank you for joining me, Ryan of the Red Quills, on this adventure of world building and campaign creation. I hope these insights and examples inspire you to craft incredible stories that captivate and challenge your players. Happy world building, and may your campaigns be filled with epic tales and unforgettable moments. This concludes our series, The Red Quill's Guide to World Design. Stay tuned for more tutorials, tips, and creative inspirations to help you on your journey as a world builder. Until next time, keep imagining and keep creating.